Elon Musk, I had to fix myself before loving you. There's a truth I wish someone had told me a long time ago, a truth that's simple, but not easy. Before you can really love someone, before you can give them the kind of love that lasts, the kind that heals, the kind that changes everything, you have to fix yourself. Or at least, you have to start. You have to look in the mirror and face what's there, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it's messy, even if it's not what you want to see. I know that sounds harsh. I know it sounds like something out of a self-help book, or a late-night conversation with a friend who's had one too many. But it's real. It's the kind of lesson you don't learn from reading or listening or watching, you learn it by living. By failing. By hurting the people you care about, even when you don't mean to. By realizing, one day, that the problem isn't out there, it's in here. I spent years thinking I could outrun my own flaws. That if I just worked harder, if I just achieved more, if I just kept moving, I could leave all the broken parts of myself behind. I thought love was something you could give from a distance, something you could offer without ever really letting someone see you. But that's not how it works. Not really. There was a time when I thought I was doing everything right. I was building companies, chasing dreams, trying to make a difference in the world. I thought that was enough. I thought that if I could just keep achieving, keep providing, keep showing up in all the ways that looked good from the outside, the inside would take care of itself. But the truth is, it doesn't. The truth is, you can't build a rocket to escape yourself. You can't invent your way out of your own pain. You can't love someone fully if you're still hiding from your own reflection. I remember a night, one of those long, restless nights when sleep just won't come, when I realized how much I was carrying. How much old pain, old fear, old stories I was dragging with me into every relationship, every conversation, every moment of connection. I realized that I was loving with one hand tied behind my back, that I was holding back, even when I didn't mean to. That I was protecting myself, even when I wanted to let someone in. And that's when it hit me. I had to fix myself. Not because I was broken beyond repair, not because I was unlovable, but because I wanted to love better. I wanted to give someone the kind of love that isn't filtered through old wounds, old defenses, old habits. I wanted to show up, fully, honestly, completely. And I couldn't do that until I faced what was holding me back. It's not easy work. It's not glamorous. It doesn't come with awards or applause or headlines. It's quiet. It's slow. It's the kind of work you do in the dark, when no one else is watching. It's the kind of work that asks you to sit with your own pain, to listen to your own fears, to admit your own mistakes. It's the kind of work that asks you to forgive yourself, again and again. I started small. I started by noticing. Noticing the moments when I pulled away, when I shut down, when I got defensive. Noticing the patterns that kept repeating, the stories I kept telling myself about why things never worked out, about why I always felt a little bit alone, even in a crowded room. I started by asking myself hard questions, and being willing to sit with the answers, even when they hurt. And slowly, things began to change. Not all at once. Not in some dramatic, movie-worthy transformation. But in small ways. In the way I listened. In the way I apologized. In the way I let myself be seen, even when it was uncomfortable. In the way I started to believe that maybe, just maybe, I was worthy of love, just as I am. I realized that fixing yourself isn't about becoming perfect. It's not about erasing every flaw, every scar, every mistake. It's about becoming honest. It's about becoming aware. It's about being willing to do the work, even when it's hard, even when it's slow, even when it feels like you're not making any progress at all. And it's about understanding that the work never really ends. There's always more to learn, more to heal, more to grow. But every step you take brings you closer, not just to the person you want to be, but to the kind of love you want to give. If you're listening to this, if you've ever felt like you were loving someone with only part of your heart, if you've ever felt like you were holding back without meaning to, if you've ever wondered why it's so hard to let someone in, you're not alone. We all have our wounds. We all have our defenses. We all have our stories. But we can change. We can heal. We can learn to love better. It starts with a single decision. The decision to stop running. The decision to turn around and face yourself, honestly, bravely, compassionately. The decision to do the work, not just for yourself, but for the people you love. Because they deserve the real you. The whole you. The you that isn't hiding, isn't pretending, isn't holding back. And you deserve that, too. So, let's talk about what it really means to fix yourself. Let's talk about the work. The real work. The work that happens in the quiet moments, in the spaces between the noise, in the places where you finally let yourself be seen. Because that's where love begins. That's where everything changes. You know, when I first started this journey, this process of fixing myself, I thought it would be like solving an engineering problem. I thought if I could just identify the faulty parts, swap them out, upgrade the system, I'd be good to go. But people, we're not machines. We're not code you can debug in a single night. We're stories. We're memories. We're hopes and fears and dreams and disappointments, all tangled together in ways that don't always make sense. I had to learn that fixing myself wasn't about erasing the past. It was about understanding it. About seeing how the things I'd been through, the things I'd survived, had shaped the way I loved, the way I trusted, the way I let people in. It was about realizing that some of the walls I'd built to protect myself were now keeping me from the very thing I wanted most. There were days when I wanted to give up. Days when it felt like no matter how hard I tried, I kept falling into the same old patterns. I'd catch myself pulling away when things got too close, shutting down when I felt vulnerable, saying things I didn't mean just to keep from feeling exposed. And every time, I'd feel that old frustration, that old shame, that old voice in my head telling me I'd never get it right. But I kept going. I kept showing up. I kept trying, even when it felt pointless, even when it felt like I was taking one step forward and two steps back. Because I knew, deep down, that the only way out was through. The only way to love someone fully was to face the parts of myself I'd spent years trying to avoid. I started to notice the little victories. The moments when I caught myself before I shut down. The moments when I chose to stay, even when it was uncomfortable. The moments when I let myself be honest, even when it felt risky. Those moments didn't always feel like much at the time, but looking back, they were everything. They were the proof that change was possible. That healing was happening, even if it was slow. And I started to see how my own healing changed the way I loved. I started to see how, when I was honest with myself, I could be honest with the people I cared about. How, when I forgave myself, I could forgive others. How, when I let go of the need to be perfect, I could finally let someone see the real me. There's a kind of freedom in that. A kind of peace. When you stop trying to hide, when you stop trying to perform, when you stop trying to be someone you're not, you make space for real connection. You make space for real love. I remember a conversation, one of those late-night talks that seemed to stretch on forever, when I finally told the truth about something I'd been carrying for years. I expected judgment. I expected disappointment. But what I got was understanding. What I got was acceptance. What I got was love. And in that moment, I realized something important. The things we're most afraid to share are often the things that bring us closest together. The things we think will push people away are often the things that make us human, that make us relatable, that make us lovable. It's not easy to be vulnerable. It's not easy to let someone see the parts of you that are still healing, still hurting, still in process. But it's the only way to real intimacy. It's the only way to real love. I started to practice something I call radical honesty. Not just with others, but with myself. I started to ask myself hard questions, about what I wanted, about what I was afraid of, about what I was running from. And I started to answer those questions, even when the answers were uncomfortable, even when they didn't fit the story I wanted to tell. And I started to share those answers, with the people I loved, with the people I wanted to let in. I started to say things like, "I'm scared," or "I don't know," or "I need help." I started to admit when I was wrong, to apologize when I messed up, to ask for forgiveness when I hurt someone. And you know what? The world didn't end. The people who mattered didn't leave. In fact, they drew closer. They opened up, too. They shared their own fears, their own struggles, their own stories. And together, we built something real. Something honest. Something lasting. If you're listening to this, if you're someone who's ever felt like you had to fix yourself before you could love someone, I want you to know that you're not alone. I want you to know that the work is worth it. I want you to know that healing is possible, even if it's slow, even if it's messy, even if it doesn't look the way you thought it would. And I want you to know that you don't have to do it alone. You don't have to have it all figured out before you let someone in. You don't have to be perfect to be loved. You just have to be willing to try. To show up. To be honest. To be real. Because that's where love begins. Not in perfection, but in presence. Not in having all the answers, but in being willing to ask the questions. Not in never making mistakes, but in being willing to learn from them. So if you're on this journey, if you're doing the work, if you're facing yourself, if you're trying to heal, I want you to know that I see you. I respect you. I'm with you. And I promise, it gets better. It gets easier. It gets lighter. One step at a time. There's something else I learned along the way, something that surprised me, even after all the years of building, failing, and starting again. Fixing yourself isn't just about healing old wounds or breaking old patterns, it's about learning how to love in a new way. It's about discovering what it means to show up, not just for someone else, but for yourself first. I used to think that self-care was selfish. That taking time for myself, setting boundaries, saying no when I needed to, was somehow a betrayal of the people I loved. But the truth is, you can't pour from an empty cup. You can't give what you don't have. If you're running on fumes, if you're always putting yourself last, if you're always sacrificing your own needs for the sake of others, eventually you run out. And when that happens, everyone loses. So I started to pay attention to what I needed. I started to listen to my own body, my own mind, my own heart. I started to rest when I was tired, to ask for help when I was overwhelmed, to say no when something didn't feel right. And at first, it felt wrong. It felt uncomfortable. It felt like I was letting people down. But over time, I realized that taking care of myself wasn't just good for me, it was good for the people I loved, too. Because when I was rested, when I was centered, when I was at peace with myself, I could show up more fully. I could listen more deeply. I could love more honestly. There's a kind of strength that comes from knowing yourself. From understanding your own limits, your own triggers, your own needs. It's not about being invulnerable, it's about being real. It's about being honest about where you are, about what you can give, about what you need in return. And that honesty, it changes everything. It creates a foundation of trust, of respect, of mutual care. It allows you to build a relationship that isn't based on sacrifice or resentment, but on partnership. On two people, each doing their own work, each bringing their whole selves to the table. I started to see how my own healing made space for someone else's healing, too. How my willingness to be honest about my struggles gave others permission to be honest about theirs. How my commitment to growth inspired the same in the people around me. And I started to see love in a new light. Not as something you fall into, or something that just happens to you, but as something you build. Something you choose. Something you work at, day after day, moment after moment. There were still hard days. Days when the old fears came back, when the old patterns tried to take over, when I wanted to run or hide or shut down. But those days didn't scare me as much anymore. Because I knew I had the tools. I knew I had the support. I knew I had the willingness to keep going, even when it was hard. And I knew I wasn't alone. If you're listening to this, if you're someone who's ever felt like you had to fix yourself before you could love someone, I want you to know that you're already on the right path. The fact that you're asking the question, that you're willing to do the work, that you care enough to try, that's everything. You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be willing to show up, to be honest, to keep trying. And if you're loving someone who's still in the process of fixing themselves, be patient. Be kind. Be supportive. Understand that healing takes time, that growth isn't linear, that there will be setbacks and stumbles along the way. But also know that your love, your presence, your understanding can make all the difference. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do for someone is to simply be there. To listen. To hold space. To let them know that they're not alone, that they're not too much, that they're not broken beyond repair. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do for yourself is to accept that same love. To let yourself be supported. To let yourself be cared for. To let yourself be loved, even when you don't feel worthy, even when you're still in the process of becoming. I've learned that love isn't about fixing each other. It's about growing together. It's about supporting each other's journeys, about celebrating each other's victories, about holding each other through the hard times. It's about being willing to say, I'm still working on myself, but I want to do it with you. It's about being willing to show up, even when you're scared, even when you're unsure, even when you don't know what comes next. And it's about believing that you're worthy of love, just as you are. Not when you're perfect, not when you've got it all figured out, but right now. In this moment. In all your messiness, in all your imperfection, in all your humanity. So if you're on this journey, if you're fixing yourself, if you're learning to love, if you're trying to build something real, I want you to know that I see you. I respect you. I'm with you. And I believe in you. Because if I can do it, if I can learn to face myself, to heal, to grow, to love, then so can you. One step at a time. One day at a time. One honest moment at a time. That's how we build something real. That's how we build something that lasts. If you're still listening, if you're still here with me, I want to leave you with something that I hope stays with you long after this moment ends. Because the truth is, fixing yourself before loving someone isn't a destination, it's a journey. It's a process that unfolds, sometimes quietly, sometimes painfully, sometimes beautifully, over the course of a lifetime. I used to think that healing was about reaching some perfect state, some final version of myself where all the old wounds were gone, all the rough edges smoothed out, all the doubts and fears erased. But now I know, that's not how it works. Healing isn't about becoming flawless. It's about becoming whole. It's about learning to hold all the parts of yourself, the strong and the fragile, the brave and the scared, the hopeful and the hurting, with compassion. And when you do that, when you start to accept yourself, not just the parts you like, but the parts you've tried to hide, something shifts. You start to show up differently. You start to love differently. You start to realize that the love you give to someone else is only as deep as the love you're willing to give yourself. There's a kind of peace that comes from letting go of the need to be perfect. From letting go of the idea that you have to have it all figured out before you can be worthy of love. There's a freedom in saying, I'm still learning. I'm still growing. I'm still healing. But I'm here. And I want to share this journey with you. That's what real love looks like. Not two perfect people coming together, but two imperfect people choosing each other, again and again, through all the messiness and uncertainty and change. It's about being willing to say, I don't have all the answers, but I'm willing to find them with you. It's about being willing to show up, even when you're scared, even when you're tired, even when you're not sure you're enough. And it's about being willing to receive love, too. To let someone see you, really see you, and to believe that you're worthy of their care, their attention, their affection. To let yourself be held, even when you feel unsteady. To let yourself be supported, even when you're used to carrying everything on your own. I think about all the times I tried to do it alone. All the times I thought I had to fix myself in secret, to hide the struggle, to only show the finished product. But the truth is, we heal in connection. We grow in relationship. We become whole not by isolating ourselves, but by letting ourselves be seen, by letting ourselves be loved, by letting ourselves be part of something bigger than our own pain. So if you're on this journey, if you're fixing yourself, if you're learning to love, if you're trying to build something real, I want you to know that you're not alone. There are people out there who understand. People who have walked this path before you. People who are walking it right now, alongside you, even if you can't see them. And I want you to know that it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to lean on someone else. It's okay to admit that you don't have it all together. Because none of us do. We're all works in progress. We're all learning as we go. If you're loving someone who's still fixing themselves, be patient. Be gentle. Remember that healing takes time, that growth isn't always visible, that sometimes the most important changes happen quietly, beneath the surface. Celebrate the small victories. Offer encouragement. Hold space for the hard days. And don't forget to take care of yourself, too. And if you're the one doing the fixing, give yourself grace. Celebrate your progress, no matter how small. Forgive yourself for the setbacks. Trust that every step you take, every honest conversation you have, every moment you choose to show up, is moving you closer to the kind of love you want to give, and the kind of love you deserve to receive. Because in the end, that's what it's all about. Not perfection, but presence. Not certainty, but courage. Not having it all figured out, but being willing to keep going, to keep trying, to keep loving, even when it's hard. So, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being willing to do the work, to ask the hard questions, to open your heart, even when it's scary. Remember, you don't have to be perfect to be loved. You don't have to have it all together to be worthy of connection. You just have to be willing to show up. To be honest. To be real. And if you do that, if you keep choosing love, if you keep choosing growth, if you keep choosing yourself, even when it's hard, you'll find that you're not just fixing yourself. You're building something beautiful. You're building a life. You're building a love that lasts. So wherever you are on your journey, keep going. Keep growing. Keep loving. Because you're worth it. And so is the person waiting to love the real you.